Welcome to episode 186 of Take Flight podcast with myself, Daniel. It's fair to say I'm somewhat of a frequent flyer. This is due to both work and pleasure. And for those who know me, you know I have an extreme love for travel, which I've gone into greater detail in a previous episode. However, I commonly get asked what it's like to fly in business class and is it worth the extra money? In this Take Flight episode, I will cover the benefits of flying first class, business class, as well as comparing it to economy and a premium economy. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So as I mentioned in the intro, I love traveling and I've had the great pleasure of traveling in all cabins. So first class, business class, premium economy and economy. And let me be specific, these are all the cabin classes on British Airways. Let me first cover what it's like to travel in first class. I was very fortunate to travel in first class a few years ago. And yes, it was a work trip. I definitely don't have the money to travel first class for leisure. And let me say the experience all starts from when you check in. For first class, there's a dedicated check-in area and subsequently a different security line and a completely different lounge when you go through security than any other travelers have access to. In this lounge, you can pre-book a spa treatment like a massage. You can have a shower and benefit from the number of restaurants that are in there with a selection of delicious meals. And I say the meals are quite hearty and you can be very full before you get on the flight. So definitely do it with caution. I'll be honest, due to its exclusivity, it was a very, very quiet experience. And you feel like you have to be quite quiet yourself. I was traveling alone. So yeah, I was just exploring and walking around and sitting and essentially just waiting for my flight and the gate to come up on the screen. When it's time to board your flight, you're one of the first group of travelers welcomed onto the aircraft and usually by a different entrance because you would typically be at the front of the plane. And after stepping on, a member of staff of the cabin crew asked me if I would like a pair of pajamas. However, I had already changed into a tracksuit, so it wasn't needed. So I politely declined. And this was also because I was taking a night flight. Not to go into too great detail, but you get an additional baggage allowance, a few other perks, as well as the number of Avios points and tier points you get with flying with BA. When you arrive on the plane, you're welcomed by the staff. They make it a very personable experience because they know that as a paying customer, you probably paid top dollar for this seat, and you're welcome with a drink of your choice. And then shortly after, you're asked what you would like for dinner or your meal, depending on what time of day you're flying. And this will be prepared and served to you shortly after takeoff. They somewhat leave you alone and they don't trouble you unless you have any questions. On this particular flight, there were only about 10 of us in first class, and that was the number that was available. It's a much, much smaller number than available in business or club world, as it's commonly called, or in the economy or premium economy cabin. Now, moving on to business class. When booking business class, you'd usually check in like other passengers, but you'd also have the ability to use the fast track service to get through security. And this can make a big difference, especially during busy periods. You'll also have access to the club lounge, which you can access even if you're not flying business class, depending on your BA executive member status. Maybe I'll do an episode in future on how you can accumulate miles and how to get access to various lounges, especially BA lounges in Terminal 5. When it's time to board, you'll most likely board after first class passengers and also be welcomed with a drink, usually champagne or orange juice. One thing to highlight is that the new Boeing 777s, yeah, I did say that right, 777s, have an improved Club World cabin, aka business class, where you get more privacy than the previous cabins on other jets of BA, which is fantastic. And I really like that. You also get a 6-foot lie flat bed, which in all honesty is still short for me and doesn't provide complete comfort because I'm 6'3". And one thing I'd highlight is always check which aircraft is flying on the flight you're about to book because many different aircrafts have different layouts. Some are older, some are newer. So if you're going to pay, quite a considerable amount for the flight, you may want to make sure that the seat in the aircraft you're choosing is somewhat going to reflect that price. The meal, similar to first class, you would select when you're seated. The staff will come and ask you what you would like. And this again is served shortly after takeoff. And to be honest, you're left alone very much most of the flight unless you have questions or if another meal is served. And comparing to economy for business class and first class is I timed it. I think in economy, premium economy, you get your meal around 90 minutes after takeoff. With business class and first class, it's as soon as the staff start to stand up, they will start preparing your meal. So it's like usually within half an hour. And what this means is if you're in business or first, you can really much just relax, go to sleep or do what you want for the remainder of the flight. And in night flight, where it might be from JFK or New York to London, which is 6 hours, you want to try and maximize the ability to sleep. Whereas if you're in economy, by the time you've had your meal, it's been taken, you maybe have about 4.5, 5 hours left, or sorry, 4.5, 4 hours left of the flight. And therefore you can somewhat arrive a bit tired. With business class, with the flat bed, and also first class, you can be somewhat a little more refreshed. However, I will say on my last flight back last week from Atlanta, it was a better sleep. When I came back from Chicago a couple of months ago, I didn't sleep at all, even though flying business class. And when I came back last year from Atlanta again, I also couldn't sleep. So that really gets to me when I can't sleep, especially when you're in somewhat of a bed. I'm actually going to throw in the mix premium economy now. So I won't go into detail about economy, but I'll compare kind of business class to premium economy. So premium economy is different to the economy cabin, and it's a slight step up. And you know what? I was pleasantly surprised by this cabin. I took this for the first time in June last year, and the comfort it gave, I was shocked to say the least. It gave me ample legroom, and being quite tall, it does make a big difference to me. And you're not actually very much affected if the seat in front of you decides to recline. It doesn't give you the lie flat position that business or first class would. However, it still gives you a level of comfort that you're able to get a decent amount of sleep, as long as you probably have a neck pillow around you. So that's something to certainly not overlook. However, it is a smaller cabin, so if you are going to be booking this class of cabin, you have to be fairly quick, especially if it's a popular route, because the number of seats, depending on the aircraft, are around 24 to 28. So it's somewhat smaller than business, depending on which aircraft. It's less than economy. But because it's slight jump up, it can be a sought after cabin. So definitely make sure you book that from the outset. And if you want to upgrade to business, at least have that ability or flexibility to do so, where there may be small seats available, but premium economy is certainly good. And I will say, which I'll probably go into greater detail, if you want to get upgraded to business, it's probably best to have premium economy, because when I came back from Chicago, originally business was, I think there was 6 or 7 of us. They bumped a lot of people up from premium economy who had significant status with BA and moved them to business free of charge. Anyway, not to digress too much. With all that said, business class is good. Is it worth the price? I would say if you can afford it on the new 777s, definitely go for it. It's definitely an experience I would recommend, again, if you can afford it. However, premium economy certainly shouldn't be overlooked. So, weigh up how many flights or how many trips you'll be doing, who you're flying with, whether it's solo, whether it's family, with friends, what the budget is. Some people rather choose a cheaper flight and have a nicer experience when they get to their destination. Others like to travel in style, like to be comfortable. Also, depending on the duration of the flight, that also plays a big factor. Again, all I've said is based on British Airways, and in no way is this episode sponsored or paid for. So I hope this has been insightful to helping you decide how you would like to travel in future. If you have any questions, feel free to DM us at Take Flight Podcast. Leave us a comment on YouTube. Also check us out on TikTok as well. Until next week, stay safe and God bless.